and modify. Stop, drop it low, but pick it up carefully. Work them glutes like you in physical therapy.
Anatomy of the large intestines. So it extends from the ileum to the anus. It is actually 1.5 meter long and 150 centimeters. Its abdominal part are cecum, appendix, ascending colon, transverse colon, and upper sigmoid colon. The rest of its part will be covered in the pelvic cavity. Lower sigmoid colon, rectum, and anal canal are its further components. The part of large intestine identified as the colon consists of the cecum through the sigmoid colon. The primary function of the large intestine is absorption of water, absorption of electrolytes, storage of undigested food until it will be secreted, as you can see here. This is the appendix, this is the cecum, and this is the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, the sigmoid colon, the rectum, and then you will have the anus, as you can see here. Okay, so this is the right hepatic flexure, this is the transverse colon, and you will see here the superior mesenteric artery. These are the round structure are the hastrums, and the whole is this one is the ascending colon, and this is the ileum, this is the ileocecal wall, this is the cecum, this is the appendix, this is the rectum, and this is the anal canal, external anal sphincter, air, the round circular muscles, the sigmoid colon. These are the tena coli, which is the three band muscular structure. As you can see here, this is the cut edge of the mesenteries, and this is the descending colon. These are the epiploic appendages, like these yellowish color structures. This whole is the transverse colon, and behind the and upper part of this is the transverse mesocolon. This is the left splenic flexure. The first part of the large intestine is the cecum, lies at the level at the junction of the ileum. It is a blind and a pouch that is located in the right iliac fossa. It is actually about 2.5 inches long and is completely covered by the peritoneum. It possesses a considerable amount of mobility. It is mobile part, although it does not have a mesentery. A appendix is situated in the superior surface. The presence of the peritoneal fold is in the vicinity of the cecum create the superior ileal, inferior ileal, and retrocecal recess, which is a pouch-like structure. As in the colon, the longitudinal muscle is restricted to the three flat bands, the tena coli, which is converged on the base of the appendix and provided a complete longitudinal muscle coat. The cecum is often distended with gas and can be palpated through the anterior abdominal wall in the living patients. The terminal part of the ileum enters the large intestine at the junction of cecum with ascending colon. The opening is provided with two folds or lips, which form a so-called ileocecal wall. The appendix communicates with the cavity of the cecum through an opening located below and behind the ileocecal opening. As you can see here, this is the cecum, and this is the ileum which enters into the cecum, the opening of the ileum, which is ileocecal wall, and from here the ascending colon starts. Relation of the cecum: anteriorly it have the coils of small intestine, part of the greater omentum, anterior abdominal wall in the iliac region, while posteriorly it have the psoas muscle, iliacus muscle, femoral nerve, lateral cutaneous nerve, appendix, genitofemoral nerve, axonal iliac artery, while medially it have the appendix that arise from it. So as you can see here, this is the anterior view. This is the anterior cecal artery, the superior ileocecal fold, the superior ileocecal recess, the terminal part of the ileum, the inferior part of inferior ileocecal recess, mesentery of the appendix, the inferior cecal fold, and this is the vermiform appendix. While inferiorly, you will have in this like structure. This is the cecum. These are the tena coli, the ileum, the retrocecal recess, the vermiform appendix, and this is the posterior cecal fold. So as you can see here, the cecum lies in the the right iliac region. Posterior relation, it have the gonadal vessels, the lateral cutaneous nerve, the genitofemoral nerve, the psoas muscle, the iliacus muscles over here, the external iliac artery, and the femoral nerve. Blood supply is from the anterior and posterior cecal artery. These are the branches of ileocholic artery, which is a branch of superior mesenteric artery, and the vein corresponds venous supply. The veins corresponds to the arteries that they drain into the superior mesenteric vein. The lymphatic drainage is the lymphatic vessel passes through several mesenteric nodes, finally reach to the superior mesenteric node, and its nerve supply is from sympathetic and parasympathetic superior into the superior mesenteric supply plexus. Blood supply of the large intestine. There are two main arteries that supply the large intestine and some part of the small intestine. So these arteries include the celiac artery, the superior mesenteric artery, which is having there are many branches of that supply the small intestine. That is actually the further branches of the superior mesenteric artery. So as we discussed earlier, the midgut is whole supplied by the superior mesenteric artery. The superior mesenteric artery gives us five branches: the jejunal artery, the pancreatoduodenal artery, the middle colic artery, the ileocholic artery, and the right colic artery. Superior mesenteric artery, the jejunal arteries. First of all, there are 12 to 15 branches that anastomose with each other to form a series of arterial arcades. First, second, and third series of arcades is called as the to form together is called as the vasa recta that supply the small intestine. Pancreatoduodenal arteries have two main branches, anterior and posterior branch, and the third branch, artery is the middle colic artery, which runs upward and divides into the right and left colic artery. The fourth artery is the ileocholic artery, which give rise four branches: anterior cecal, posterior cecal, ascending colic, and descending colic artery. The right colic artery have ascending branches that anastomose with the branch of the middle colic artery. So as you can see here, these are the arteries with their names. The jejunal artery, ileocholic artery, right colic artery, superior mesenteric artery here, then the middle colic artery, and on other side you can see here the left colic artery, the superior rectal artery, and other branches, some other branches. The inferior mesenteric artery, the next artery that supply the hindgut is inferior mesenteric artery, which is a branch of aorta. It gives two main branches: the left colic artery and the sigmoidal artery. The left colic artery moves toward the descending colon, and it has two branches: the ascending and descending arteries. The ascending artery anastomoses with the middle colic artery. The sigmoid arteries, there are 3 to 5 in numbers. The first branch is the sigmoidal artery that will anastomose with the descending branch of the left colic artery. The second branch of the sigmoidal artery is the superior rectal artery that is the which is the terminal branch of the branch supply the superior part of the cecum. So ileocecal valve, the cecal valve, which is actually a rudimentary structure. The ileocecal valve consists of two horizontal folds of the mucous membrane that project around the orifice of the ileum. The valve play little or no part in the prevention of the reflux of the cecum content into the ileum. Circular muscles of the lower end of the ileum called a sphincter serve as a sphincter and control the flow of content from ileum into the colon. The orifice, the smooth muscle tone is reflexively increased when the cecum is distended. The hormone gastrin, which produced by the stomach, causes the relaxation of the muscle tone. So, okay, now here we will discuss about the anatomy of the appendix. So, in the it is also called vertiform appendix. It is a neuromuscular tube containing a large amount of lymphoid tissues, varies in length from 3 to 5 inches. Base is of the cecum is about 1 inch below the ileocecal junction. The remainder of the appendix is free, has a complete peritoneal covering, which is attached to the mesentery of the small intestine by a short mesentery of its own. The mesoappendix contains the appendicular nerves and the vessels. It lies in the right iliac fossa in relation to the anterior abdominal wall. Its base is situated one-third way up the lining joining the right anterior superior iliac spine to the umbilicus, which is called as the McBurney's point. Inside the abdomen, the base of the appendix is easily found by identifying the tinea coli of the cecum and tracing them to the base of the appendix, where they converge to form continuous longitudinal muscle cords. So, common position of the uh, appendix is some of the following. The tip of the appendix is having considerable amount of the movement and may be found in the following position. The first one is hanging down in the pelvis against the pelvic wall, which is the most common, coiled up behind the cecum. Along the lateral and side of the cecum is the next position, and last position is the in front and behind the terminal part of the cecum, as you can see here. The posterior is 1 less than 1%. Preilial is 2%. Pelvic is 30%. Subcecal is 2%. Cecum and the retrocecal is 65%, which is the most common position of the appendix. The blood supply is from the appendicular artery branch of the ileocecal artery, which is the sub branch of the superior mesenteric artery, while the venous supply is from the appendicular artery, which drains directly into the posterior cecal vein. Its lymphatic drainage is into the superior mesenteric node, and its nerve supply is from sympathetic T10, while parasympathetic is from vagus nerve from the superior mesenteric plexus. So the next part of the large intestine is ascending colon. It is basically 5 inches long and lie in the lower quadrant, right lower quadrant. Extend upward from cecum to the right colic or hepatic flexure. Turn to the left from transverse colon. Peritoneum covers the side and front of the ascending colon, binding it to the posterior abdominal wall. So the relations anteriorly it have the coils of small intestine, abdominal wall. At the top it have the liver and greater momentum. Posteriorly it have iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerve, the kidney, adrenal gland, iliacus muscle, quadratus lumborum, and transverse abdominis muscle. As you can see here, this is the ascending colon. Here is the right colic fracture. So blood supply is from the ileocolic and right colic artery, which are the branches of the mesenteric artery, and the venous drainage is into the superior mesenteric vein, and nerve supply is from the superior mesenteric plexus from both the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Next, moving to the next part of the large intestine, which is transverse colon. It is about 15 inches long and extend across the abdomen, occupy the umbilical region, begin at the right colic fracture below the right lobe of the liver, and hangs downward, suspended by the transverse mesocolon from the pancreas. It then ascends to the left colic splenic flexure below the spleen. The left colic flexure is higher than the right colic flexure and is suspended from the diaphragm by the phreniocolic ligament. The transverse mesocolon suspend transverse colon from the anterior border of the pancreas, and the mesentery is attached to the superior border of the transverse colon. The posterior layer of the greater omentum are attached to the inferior border of the transverse colon. Because of the length of the transverse mesocolon, the position of transverse colon is extremely variable and may sometimes reach down as far as into the pelvis. So the relations anteriorly it is having the greater omentum and anterior abdominal wall, while posteriorly it have second part of the duodenum, head of the pancreas, coils of the jejunum and ileum. So the blood supply is from the middle colic artery, which supply the proximal third of the transverse colon, the middle colic artery, which is the branch of the superior mesenteric artery. The left colic artery supply the distal third, which is the branch of the inferior mesenteric artery, and the lymphatic drainage follows the arteries, which is the superior mesenteric node and inferior mesenteric node. And the nerve supply is same, the superior mesenteric plexus and the inferior mesenteric plexus. Next part is the descending column. It is actually 10 inches long, lies in the left upper and lower quadrant of the abdomen, extend downward from the left colic flexure to the pelvic rib, where it become continuous with the sigmoid colon. The peritoneum covered the front and inside and bind it to the posterior abdominal wall. As you can see here, this is the descending colon. So the relation of the descending colon: anteriorly it have the coils of small intestine, the greater omentum, anterior abdominal wall, while posteriorly it have the lateral border of the kidney, origin of the transverse abdominis, left psoas, quadratus lumborum, and the iliacus muscle. It posteriorly also have the iliac crest, and in nerves it have the iliohypogastric, ilioinguinal, lateral cutaneous, and the femoral nerve. As you can see here, so blood supply, and the arterial supply is from the left colic artery and the sigmoidal branches of the inferior mesenteric artery, which drains into the inferior mesenteric vein as a venous supply. So the lymphatic drainage is into the colic lymph node and inferior mesenteric nodes. Nerve supply is from the pelvic sphincteric nerve. So now we will discuss about the okay. So guys, here we will discuss about the difference between the small and the large intestine. So small intestine is mobile while large intestine is immobile. The caliber of small intestine is less than the large intestine. The small intestine except the duodenum has mesentery while large intestine does not have. The longitudinal muscle of the small intestine form the continuous layer around the gut, while in the large intestine, exception to the appendix, the longitudinal muscle is collected in three bands of the tinea coli. The small intestine has no fatty tags to its wall, while the large intestine has fatty tags called omental appendices. The wall of small intestine is smooth, whereas that of large intestine is circulated in large fold and called hysteros. So histology of the large intestine is similar to the small intestine, except it does not have plica circularis, does not have villi, so it is smooth in structure, but have many number of goblet cells as we discussed earlier. So structurally it contains mucosa, submucosa, muscularis propria, and serosa. So mucosa, they have epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa, while the proper muscular layer, which is the third layer, have circular and longitudinal muscle layers. So mucosa comprises of three parts: epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. So first of all, we will discuss the epithelial lining. It is simple. It contains simple epithelium, and it has some types of cells. There are three types of cells that are found only in the epithelium: is enterocyte, goblet cells, and endocrine cells. So enterocytes are also called as absorptive cells, which created a striated or brush border cells in the apex, also called as colonocytes. They are microvilli on their apex. They have microvilli on their apex, which is covered by the glycocalyx, which contain enzymes like disecretase, enterosecretase, aminopeptidase, alkaline phosphatase. These are the products of colonocytes, which after translation integrated into the membrane called as integral membrane protein. The main function of the enterocyte is the absorption of the water and nutrients and electrolytes from the chyme. So the or undigested food. The goblet cells secrete mucin, which mix with water to form mucus. As we discussed earlier, the endocrine cells are they belong to the neuroendocrine system, produce polypeptide hormone, which influence motility and secretion of the intestine. As you can see here, this is the mucosa, the submucosa, the circular muscle layer, and these are the tinea coli, these are the vasa recta, and the last one is the serosa. So the lamina propria is actually a loose connective tissue layer, abundant cell are fibroblast here, and is related to the connective tissue cells. The lymphocyte, which are present due to large number of bacteria, which is seen here till the submucosa. They have the crypts of lubricant embedded in it, which is simpler tubular gland covered by the epithelium. So in lamina propria, the cells present is the enterocyte, goblet cells, enteroendocrine cells, niche cells, and stem cells. So enterocytes have a clear role in digestion, ensuring the uptake of ions, water, nutrients, minerals, absorption of unconjugated bile salts. While enteroendocrine cells, they belong to the neuroendocrine system and they secrete the hormone including the serotonin polypeptide, and the GLP-1 and GLP-2 and cholecystokinin. And the next cells are the goblet cells. As you know, they secrete mucus. Next cells are the Paneth cells, less in number compared to the small intestine. Even sometimes it is not distinguished in the large intestine. Their main function is to package and export a variety of antimicrobial proteins, peptide including alpha-adipsin, angiogenin 4, lysozymes, and secretory phospholipase A2. So the next cells present in the lamina propria is the stem cells. The function of the stem cell is to produce epithelial cells. So next layer is the submucosa, made up of loose connective tissue which have lamina propria, but there is a difference from small intestine. Over here it contains less cells, thicker collagen fiber, bigger vessels. There is a nerve plexus which is called Menzer plexus or submucosal plexus, controlled by the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, which control the blood flow, motility, contraction of muscular muscles, and secretions of various substances. So, muscularis mucosa is composed of smooth muscles divided into two sublayers. There are mesenteric plexus found in between these two muscles layer, which is responsible for the contraction of rhythmic contractions. The inner layer is thicker and composed of circular muscle, while the outer layer is longitudinal and is thinner. So there are three bands of longitudinal muscles that form the tibia colli. Next, outermost layer is the serosa, which is connected with the peritoneum and made up of simple columnar epithelium cells. It is connected with the mesothelium. Okay. Now we will discuss the accessory organ here. The accessory organ of the GI. So it involves the liver, biliary, spleen, pancreas, and the gallbladder. So liver is actually the largest gland in the body, and its function is to produce cholesterol, production of secretion and bile, filtration and detoxification, heparin synthesis, recycling of hemoglobin, process nutrition like vitamins from bloods, and maintain level of sugar, synthesis of protein, and store fat and glucagon. Okay, so it produces cholesterol by the enzyme called HMG coenzyme A reductase, which is also called as hydroxymethyl glutarate coenzyme A. So it produces secretion and bile which is involved in many metabolic activities, and it digests carbs, proteins, and fats. So it does filtration and detoxification by removing bacteria and other foreign particles that have gained interest from the intestine. It filter blood coming from the portal system, detoxified the body from drugs and toxins and alcohol. So heparin is synthesized by the liver, which is an anticoagulant, and it also recycles the hemoglobin by production of bile pigments from the hemoglobin of worn out RBCs, corpuscles, and secrete bile salt, and then conveyed to the duodenum by the biliary duct. So, location and description of the liver. So, the liver is actually a soft, pliable, and highly vascular tissue occupying the upper part of the abdominal cavity in the right hypochondrium, epigastric, and some part of the left hypochondrium, just beneath the diaphragm. The greater part of the liver is situated under the cover of the right costal margin, anteriorly the 10th rib. Below to it is the 5th, 6th, and 4th rib above the superior border, and the right hemidiaphragm separated from the pleura, lungs, pericardium, and heart from the upper superior side. It extends to the left to reach the left hemidiaphragm. The convex upper surface of the liver is molded to under surface of the dome of the diaphragm. So the posterior, inferior, or visceral surface is molded to adjacent viscera and is therefore irregular in shape. It lies in contact with the abdominal part of the esophagus, the stomach, the duodenum, the right colic flexure, the right kidney, suprarenal gland, and the gallbladder. It has four lobes, two surfaces, two borders, and three grooves. So it is divided into the quadrate. Its lobes are the right lobe is large and further divided into two lobes, quadrate lobe or caudate lobe. By the presence of the gallbladder, the fissure of the ligamentum venosum is the caudate lobe. By attachment of the peritoneum, it is attached by the falciform ligament. It has two lobes, small and a small left lobe and the right large lobe. As you can see here, this is the right lobe, this is the left lobe. It is divided by the falciform ligament. Posteriorly, it have the structures, that is the inferior vena cava, the aorta, and the right lobe. It have the fossa for the gallbladder. You are here. You are having the porta hepatis, and here it is divided into the right and the left lobe. Left lobe, there is a caudate lobe, and there is a transverse groove that divide the caudate and the caudate lobe, and in between them there is a porta hepatis. We will discuss it later. So the porta hepatis or hilum of the liver is found on the posterior inferior surface of the liver and lies between the caudate and the caudate lobe. So the upper part of the free edge of the lesser omentum is attached to its margin. In it, the right and left hepatic duct, the right and the left branches of the hepatic artery, the hepatic portal vein, sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve fibers passes through. A few hepatic lymph nodes lie here. They drain the liver and gallbladder into the and send their efferent vessels to the celiac lymph node. Liver is completely surrounded by a fibrous capsule, but only partially covered by the peritoneum. Liver is made up of liver lobules. The central vein of each lobule is a tributary of the hepatic vein. In the spaces between the lobules, the portal canal, which contain branches of the hepatic artery, portal vein, a tributary of the bile duct, which is called as the portal triad. So, the arteries and venous blood pressures between the liver cells by means of the sinusoid and drains into the central vein. So, this is the liver, as you can see here, from here till here. So the borders, there are two borders of the liver, the superior border and the inferior border. The superior border start medially from fourth rib, move downward and toward the right at 5th 6th rib, ended on the 10th rib. Inferior border start medially from 6th intercostal space and move medially to cross the 8th and 9th rib and ended laterally on the 10th rib. So this is the liver. The right lobe, the left lobe, the falciform ligament, and this is the bear area. So surfaces, there are two surfaces of the liver: diaphragmatic surface and the visceral surface. So the diaphragmatic surface, it faces the diaphragm anteriorly and posteriorly have the following structure. It anteriorly have the falciform ligament. There are two margins of the liver, inferior and posterior margin, and is covered by the peritoneum and fat. So posteriorly there are three distinct features: the right sagittal groove, left sagittal groove, and transverse groove. These grooves plays an important role by dividing the liver into following. So the right sagittal groove, which has inferior vena cava, passes through it, form the fossa for the gallbladder and fossa for the inferior vena cava. Left sagittal groove have a rounded ligament and teres hepatis. Above is the ligamentum venosum. These both ligaments form the left and the sagittal, form the left sagittal groove. So the transverse groove contain porta hepatis, which is a short depression through all the neuromuscular structures, and hepatic ducts enter or leave the liver. The transverse groove divide the caudate lobe into from the quadrate lobe. So the next surface is the visceral surface. There are various ligaments that connect liver with diaphragm and other organs. So faces various viscera, including the pylorus of the pylorus of the stomach. These are the structure that faces the visceral surface of the liver. These are the pylorus of the stomach, duodenum, colon, right kidney, esophagus, and stomach. So, porta hepatis or hilum of the liver, which is a short depression through all the neuromuscular structures, and the hepatic duct enter or leave the liver, which contain hepatic duct, hepatic portal vein, hepatic portal artery, hepatic portal lymph, hepatic portal nerve. All of them are covered by the hepatoduodenal ligament. So as you can see here, this is the porta hepatis. So now here you can see here the groove. This is the transverse groove that divide the quadrate lobe and the caudate lobe. Here you can see here the groove for the inferior vena cava and groove for the fundus of the gallbladder, and there is another groove this which inferiorly have the ligamentum teres and superiorly it have the ligamentum venosus. Relation of the liver: anteriorly it have the anterior abdominal wall, 5 to 10 ribs, peritoneum, the diaphragm, left and right margin of the pleura, and lower margin of the both lungs. So posteriorly it have the kidney, hepatic flexure, esophagus, fundus of the stomach, duodenum, peritoneum, inferior vena cava, and the gallbladder. As you can see here, this is the anterior relation. It have the diaphragm, the margin of the left and right costal margin, the left and the right pleura over here, and the lungs over here, left and the right, the xiphoid process, and the anterior abdominal wall. So in the posterior relation, you can see here the diaphragm which is covering the liver, the right kidney over here, the right suprarenal gland, the colic flexure over here, the duodenum over here, the gallbladder, the inferior vena cava, the esophagus over here, and fundus of the stomach. So now we will discuss the ligaments. So the lesser omentum connected with the porta hepatis. Ligaments are divided into three main divisions: the diaphragmatic connected, the visceral connected, and the ligaments of the liver itself. So the diaphragmatic ligaments are the falciform ligaments which connect the liver to the anterior abdominal wall and divide the left and the right lobe. The left triangular ligament, the right triangular ligament. These two ligaments are connect the liver into the with the diaphragm, while the coronary ligament, these are two ligaments that connect the falciform connect to the falciform ligament. So the next ligaments are the visceral ligament that connect. These ligaments originate from the porta hepatis and connect the liver to the various viscera. So the first one is the hepatogastric ligament, which start from porta hepatis to stomach. The next one is hepatoduodenal ligament, start from porta hepatis to the duodenum. The round ligament, which start from porta hepatis to the umbilicus. The hepatorenal ligament, which start from porta hepatis to the kidney. So the blood supply of the liver. Now we will discuss blood supply of the liver. Arterial supply of the liver is from the common hepatic artery. Then hepatic artery enters through the porta hepatis and brings 30% of the whole hepatic blood circulation, the whole blood circulation, which also have the venous supply, because as you know the due to portal circulation, the 70% of the blood flow into the liver is venous. The portal vein, as the portal vein, which have 70% of the whole blood coming from the GITs, divided into the two terminal branches that enter the porta hepatis behind the arteries, bring rich blood to the liver, bring rich blood to liver products of the to the liver, which the products of digestion which has been digested from the GIT. The arterial and the venous blood connected to the central vein of each lobule by the liver sinusoids. The central vein drains directly into the right and the left hepatic vein. These lead to the posterior surface of the liver and open directly into the inferior vena cava. The hepatic vein emerges from the posterior surface of the liver and drain into the hepatic inferior vena cava. So as you can see here, this is the portal vein that move upward, and these are the hepatic portal veins move furtherward from right to left, and here it will drain into the branches of the right hepatic vein, left hepatic vein, then move toward the inferior vena cava. So nerve supply, sympathetic and parasympathetic supply into celiac plexus, anterior vagal trunk give rise to the large hepatic branch which passes directly into the liver. The lymphatic drainage, the liver produces large amount of lymph, about one third of whole body. As you know, it is a lymphatic organ. The lymph vessel leave the liver, enter several lymph nodes into the porta hepatis. The afferent vessel passes to the celiac node. A few vessels pass from the bare area of the liver through the diaphragm.
If it hurts to modify, stop, drop it low, but pick it up carefully. Work them glutes like you in physical therapy.